These are things that you should be looking for, the words. Those highlighted words, okay, they are indicators of where you can find the answers to inference. Suggestions, inferred suggestions imply. And the most common variety on the digital SAT is most logically completes the text. You are bound to get that form of a question. Always. In fact, not just once. I've seen for most DSATs, you get about 4 to 5 questions of this type. Which choice most logically completes the text, if not more than that? How do you answer inference questions? Okay, the easiest way is to look for clues in context, but that doesn't usually work. It's the easiest way to do it. You should do it, but you don't always get the opportunity to answer based off on that alone. Step number 2 is probably the most powerful way you can get the inference questions right. Step number 2, consider the author's purpose. For that, you need to know the meaning of a word, and I'm putting it here in the chat. So I'll put it in caps so that you guys know how important that is. There. Exigence. Exigence can be defined as the urgent or pressing need for which a piece of communication has been created. So it basically means what the overarching purpose of an item of communication is. What was the communicator's purpose that drove the creation of that piece of communication, whatever it might be, a speech, an article, a blog, anything. If you can correctly identify what the exigence of that particular article was, you will go a long way in being able to infer the answer to questions based on that. And then, of course, number 3, which is basically the backbone of any form of logical reasoning, pattern recognition. That's what an IQ test is all about, recognizing and identifying patterns. And of course, finally, as far as the SAT goes, a tried and tested, most common method, eliminating the wrong answers from the list. Now, most of you might do this last one and maybe even the first one. Some of you might even be good at this. Now, this though, number 2, considering the purpose, you need to be able to do that for pretty much every piece of communication you come across. And if you can successfully do that, you will end up more often than not getting the right answer to inference questions. And of course, here are things that you should look for. When they say extreme language, do you know what that means? It actually means absolute claims, relative claims and absolute claims. So absolute claims come from words such as will, definitely, certainly, is. Relative claims, on the other hand, could be, maybe, shall be, probably, possibly, likely. Most people use a mix of these. But if something calls for an inference, they are more likely to use relative terms. Why? Because inference has, by default, something to do with things to happen in the future, something that has not yet happened, which is why they have to infer. Otherwise, since it's already happened, you don't have to guess. You have the information in front of you. So since they typically have to infer about things that are going to happen in the future, in order to keep their side safe, they will use relative terms to avoid being wrong. So, next one, unwarranted assumptions. So now this, well, that's hard to guess, okay? It is indeed the skill that you should develop. This is called logical fallacies. An unwarranted assumption is a type of logical fallacy which is called a non sequitur. Okay, I'll put it in the chat so you know what kind of fallacy that is. Also called false equivalency, sometimes, depending on what kind of non sequitur it is. It simply means false reasoning. your ability to recognize it as well as avoid using it. That's what a master at logical reasoning should be capable of. Identify fallacies, and also you yourself should stop using it. Never use it, in fact. Of course, contradictions, that's easy. Though it is pretty much the worst logical fallacy someone can indulge in, self-contradiction. If one of the answers is a direct opposite of what the passage is talking about, immediately you can discard it. Then again, that can only happen if you can accurately understand what the passage is really all about. Because if you do that, then you will know what its opposite is. Same thing. Distractions. Now, those are what we call tangents, okay? Strawmans, irrelevant, okay? All words that mean the same thing. Distractions. Things that have absolutely no bearing, okay? And copy and paste. Now, this is one thing that nowadays they don't put it, but if you're unlucky, it could happen and you may fall victim to it. Copy and paste, also called paraphrasing or rephrasing or restating. It's that particular occasion where all that option does is simply restate the same idea. That's it. And you might think that is the answer. It isn't. Because, like I said, an inference means, by definition, it is going to be about something that is not explicitly mentioned in the paragraph. But copy and paste, again, by default, implies that they are simply restating something that is directly given in the passage. Hence, it cannot be the inference. Okay, here are some examples that we can take a look at. This is one of the type of questions you will get on the DSAT. So let's see. Adaptations to cold temperatures have high metabolic costs. Go ahead, read that. And then I'll ask you, what do you think the purpose of this is?
The lower the temperature gets, the fewer species that are able to adapt to survive in the temperature.
So here, okay, Mendy says it's to explain the distribution of species diversity in cold places. Explain the distribution, right? Okay. Again, Felicia has also used the word explain the species diversity in mountain ecosystems. Here's the problem though. Do you guys know what explain actually means? You literally have to give the details. If it is a mere mention, is that an explanation? In here, I would think that this is a case of the author simply saying, yeah, to provide evidences and then to show how it happens in quite an amount of detail. In this case, though, all I see is that the author is saying, look, if a life form has a choice of which temperature environment they have to live in, they're going to pick warmer climates because to live in cold environments, they require a much greater, more expensive metabolic system, evolutionary speaking. Therefore, if you have a particular environment in which you get different temperature environments, it is quite likely that in the colder environment, you will find less creatures and more creatures in the warmer environment. So what is the answer for number one? If the creature has the opportunity and the choice to live at the base of the mountain instead of going all the way up, because up it's going to be cold. And the only creatures who are going to have adaptations to cold weather are the creatures who are forced to live in cold climates. The answer is B. In conjunction with the decline in air temperature, the distribution of species diversity, you will find fewer species up. Why? Because it is really hard to develop the evolution necessary to adapt to cold weather. So creatures will not do it unless they're forced to do it. Okay? And who are the creatures who are likely to be forced? Think on that. What kind of creatures do you know of that live exclusively in the environment that they're talking about? The most famous one would be snow leopards. Then the ibex, the mountain goats. What else? All those creatures that live on the snow-capped areas of mountains, mountain-dwelling creatures. Why do they do that? Why would they do that? Two reasons. Number one, the herbivorous animals who do it, they might do it because they want to avoid predators. There are far too many predators at the base of the mountain in warmer climate, which is likely. And the carnivorous animals are usually those who can't compete with other carnivores to hunt animals found on the ground. So they move upstairs, thinking there'll be less competition. You have snow leopards, you don't have snow lions. You don't have snow tigers. No snow cheetahs or snow jaguars. You only have snow leopards. Why? Simple. Leopards are smaller than lions and tigers, slower than cheetahs, and they have a weaker bite force than jaguars. So this is how you think logically, okay? This is how you make inferences. You should be able to less competition. Yes, exactly. Well done. So this is how, by identifying the purpose of a passage, doing it correctly, you will be likely to get the answer correct as well. In this case, you guys couldn't identify the purpose of this passage, and that's why you had trouble. The purpose was quite simple. If I say that adaptations to cold weather has high metabolic cost, I'm not saying that, okay, if an animal is wealthy, okay, he has all the dollars needed to go and buy the required evolution at the evolution shop. No. For these creatures, if something is high, they're less likely to pursue it. This is all about possession. Do you know what a possession is in grammar? Not the demonic thing, but in grammar, the rule, possession. When should it be put next to something? Would it be a verb, a noun, an adjective, or an adverb? Good. Remember that always, okay? Possessive apostrophe can only come next to a noun. How do you determine if you can add something or it should not be added? What are the rules you must follow? Me some rules, your personal rules. Go ahead. It's relevant to your topic. So relevance, right? I agree. That's number one. Bingo. Yes, grammatically correct. Anything else? Here's one thing that you guys may not know. Look at the transition word, if any, used in the part that you have to determine. Here it says, in fact, in 2007, they did something. What is in fact? Whereupon, hereupon, things like that are words, transition words used in a very particular context. It's called adding emphasis, restating an idea, paraphrasing an idea, giving it more intensity, strengthening the claim that was previously made. Emphasis transition word. In fact, as a matter of fact. You heard those phrases? As a matter of fact. Yeah, they all do the same thing. It is an emphasis transition word. There are 4 types of transition words, okay? Combination ones, okay, which is meant to simply combine ideas from 2 sentences together. Second one, contrast. Third one, emphasis. And fourth and most powerful is the cause and effect one. We call it coherence transition words. Those are the ones like therefore, consequently, hence, since, thus, ergo, all those. Make sense? Yeah. So you guys have to be really thorough with your transition words, okay? So now, since this is an emphasis transition word, what would you pick? Supporting evidence, additive, like however is contrast, yes. Anybody? Yeah, it is C. You can't add it because it kind of changes the narrative, which was about the type of work R2 was doing, not how they ended up making R2. Next, as an event planner, Fleur needed not only to manage the conference, but also to determine if her decisions were successful. Fleur used the app to poll participants on their okay. Once again, punctuation and possession. Should it be the singular or the plural for opinion? And should it be the possession? It is. 28. There is something called redundancy. Okay, that is why, Felicia, it's not B. Offset in terms of cost, the expense of. Expense is cost. I'm telling you is indirectly, every time you see a writing like this, you should be able to identify what kind of rhetorical device, if any, has been used. It's imagery. I want you guys to think about, why is imagery usually used in literature? Imagery has been designed to create a sense of something. Well, now you know what the answer is then. Yes? What is the answer? It is indeed A. Okay? So do you see now how, by understanding rhetorical devices, okay, especially the main ones, it immediately will point you to the right answer. So most people, when they take this, they might make the mistake of thinking that it is the hectic and unpredictable nature of life in that building or whatever, right? But if you saw the first line, I loved how full her home felt. And then you saw the description of what made it full. This section is called details, but it also means this is the easiest kind of question you will get. Okay, the detail-based question, the one in which the answer can be directly found in the text presented. That's why it's called details. It's a micro level question. A macro level would be those questions which ask you to infer things. So, number 2, once again, detailed kind of question. What device is being used here? Humor, it's a joke, okay? But what is the purpose behind it though? But basically, this is a character description, okay? An exposition intended to show the reader what the characters are like, okay? Now, based on that, what do you think is the answer to question 2? Well, C is indeed the answer, okay? It's using jokes to convey particular detail. Juxtaposition? No, in this case, no, Audrey. There's no juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is two opposing concepts, not details, two opposing ideas placed next to each other.